so it's broken down into those parts. My goal in the book was to overwhelm the believer in just one thick, densely packed, comprehensively argued book, replete with references for further reading. Because nothing short of an overwhelming case will make the believer have doubt because of her faith. The delusion is that strong. The fact that I must overwhelm the believer in order to persuade them otherwise isn't my fault. It's the fault of the delusion. And lacking an intervention, we get them aside with their parents and loved ones to help them see things otherwise, what you need is an overwhelming case. And so I tried to present that in that book. People have said it's pretty densely packed, and it's for a reason. I consider my second book, the Christian Delusion, to be good. I think that if any book demolishes the Christian faith, that one does. It's not written by me. I've written 4 chapters, most of the introduction, but the rest are written by some scholars and knowledgeable people about a variety of topics that I introduced in my first book. They're sort of a companion set. And in July, I'm coming out with The End of Christianity, which is a continuation of the critique. Call it a trilogy, if you will. And I just started, like I said, I think I said that I just started on a book called Christianity is Not Great. Does that sound familiar? I can't come up with original titles, I just can't. Christian Delusion, does that sound familiar? The end of Christianity, let's see, the end of faith, Harris, let's see, does that sound familiar? I just can't come up with original titles, or else I know what I'm doing, and I'm hitchhiking, a ride. I'll hitchhike all you want. So my focus is really on evangelical Christianity. I swear, so many people say, well, that's not true Christianity. I swear that you're debugging the wrong faith. This is the true faith. Well, here's why. Not only is fundamentalist Christianity the greatest threat to the United States' science, tolerance, and social progress, but it's also the most prevalent form of Protestant Christianity to be found in our nation, whether you like it or not. It's a fundamentalist religious right that holds the reins of the Republican Party, and it's the same fundamentalist religious right that lobbies for the teaching of lies in public school and fights against funding for embryonic research that could potentially save the lives of millions and goes to war at the drop of a hat. In case you wondered if I had any here or there. But whether you like it or not, this is the flavor of Christianity that makes the loudest, most obnoxious, most dangerous impact on the world today, giving us plenty of good reason to direct the brunt of our attacks in its vicinity. My goal with these Christians is to drive a wedge between the brain of the believer and the Bible. Drive it down thick. If I can get the believer to recognize that there's no trust, that you can't trust the Holy Book, then the question remains, what would they then believe? Now, you can argue against the existence of God philosophically, and I do, but I don't focus on it because I would read those same articles and not be fazed by it. But once the wedge was driven between the Bible and my brain, then all of a sudden I began seeing those arguments differently. All of a sudden, the Michael Martin's case in Atheism of Justification all of a sudden made sense to me because I was left to think for myself. I wasn't hamstrung by quoting texts and defending things that can't be defended. All right, maybe we could dim the lights a little bit. I said a little bit. All right, you two in back, separate. That's what we got to go in? I can't read that. Well, we don't need.
I mean, if we open the blinds, we've got a solution.
All right, I think I can do this. Oh, that helps. It really does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and there are other blinds too.
I tell you, it's heaven for the best people. That's my key argument. It came to my attention attention while I was online debating. You know, at first I was online because I wanted to test my skepticism. At first I wanted just to see, well, what do people think of this? You know, I mean, like, what are the counter arguments to things that I might not have considered before? So I was there to test my ideas. And I got blasted, I got called ignorant, stupid. You know, I know I'm not stupid, you know. You know, you were never a Christian. Big deal, heard that before. I finally decided that in order to answer that question, all I got to do is say, well, that's just one of the delusions you have. Of course, now if I believed in the Bible, if I believed in God, and God didn't save me, then what does that say about God? But he doesn't keep his promises. So, you know, I wanted to know whether or not you know, we should approach faith with skepticism or with faith. And while online, someone said to me, you know, you're ignorant and you don't understand because you're not an insider. You're not an insider. You can't understand because not being a believer, you can't understand the spiritual things of God. See, I think it's a quote from 1 Corinthians. You can't understand because you're not an insider. Yeah. Although I was. I thought to myself, yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. I'm an outsider. You know, yeah, I'm an outsider. Now I'm an outsider. And your faith looks bizarre to me as an outsider. And I got to think it's further, and you know what? You treat all other religions as an outsider. I mean, you know, you're not an insider to Islam if you reject Islam, for instance. You know, you're not an insider to Hinduism if you reject Hinduism. You know, that's why the name is the outsider test of faith. You know, you should test your faith as an outsider. I'll show you how I do that. It asks the believer to examine your own faith with the same level of skepticism you use when examining the other religious faiths you reject. Well, why not? Why not? Why the double standard? You know, why is it that an insider's perspective is to be preferred over an outsider's perspective if you want to know the truth? And I think that this it's an elegant test. It's simple. It's intuitive. It's fair. Can you imagine someone saying, you know what? I don't want a fair ruling from a judge. I want a partial one. You know, that's exactly what you would have to end up doing. I want a double standard. Hey, count me in. You know, that's me. I don't want fairness. I don't want objectiveness. I want impartiality. You know. Okay, yeah, right. I read something. I said, no, I already said that. So that's basically what it comes down to, but the rest is argumentation to lead up to it. I found it almost bizarre to find the kind of rationalizations that Christians and believers have come up with to avoid the impact of it. Here's the argument then in a little more detail. Rational people in distinct geographical locations around the globe overwhelmingly adopt and defend a wide diversity of religious faiths due to their upbringing and cultural heritage. That's called the religious diversity thesis. That is, religions are diverse. They're spread out into distinct geographical boundaries, and these are rational people who have been taught from birth that their faith is correct. I mean, I don't question their rationality, it's just how they see things, okay? And I think that's undeniable, but, you know, Christians can, or believers, I don't mean to just single out Christian believers, can share why this isn't the case. I mean, I'm not denying they're rational people. I don't even doubt the rationality of the Inquisition. If you knew the logic of the Inquisition, you would have to, I think, agree. And the logic goes like this. The greatest crime of all would be to send someone to hell, because that would cause the most pain. So heretics and who speak out and try to lead people away from the true, correct faith should be killed. So the rallying cry for 200 years was convert or die. I don't doubt their sincerity. I don't doubt their sincerity. I'm just glad I didn't live back then. It's highly likely that adopting one's religious faith is causally dependent on cultural conditions to an overwhelming degree, and that's the religious dependency thesis. That is, religions are dependent are causally dependent on cultural conditions. I give a lot of different examples in both books about that, and it just seems undeniable. Now, I use words like overwhelmingly to an overwhelming degree so that I don't get caught in some kind of contradictions, like people are the exceptions. Well, you know what? There are exceptions, right? Okay, I admit that. But my claim is try explaining the rule. Sure, there are exceptions. I mean, I'll admit that. Me. Even if I doubt that, I'm fine. But try explaining the rule. Why is it that people born in different parts of the globe, different families, believe different things? And so I conclude the odds are highly likely that any given adopted religious faith is false. Now, there might be a true religion out there. I'm not. But it's like the prince in the Cinderella story who is trying to find the right princess, and 45,000 girls are saying, it's me, without an empirical shoe fit. You would have every right when coming up with the next girl number 21,005, and be skeptical when she says, it's me. That's the point. The odds are highly likely that any given adopted religious faith is false. That means that what your mama tells you on your knees is not a good source of truth about these sorts of things. That's what it means. I don't want to doubt my mom. Well, then you don't want to be a skeptic. You don't want to know the truth. Do you want to know the truth? Or do you prefer to live in a delusion? And many people would opt for the latter. I can't do anything about that. So, having concluded that, then I offer something, as a way for testing that, and that is to test one's adopted religious faith from the perspective of an outsider with the same level of skepticism used to evaluate other religious faiths. And come up with a better test. People who want to object to the outsider test for faith, I simply say, come up with a better test. What's the alternative? When we know that the odds are very highly unlikely that you got the true faith. It really doesn't matter that everybody that you know is a Christian. It doesn't really matter if you live in a state that 90% of the people are Christians. It doesn't really matter, because they could, and I think they are brainwashed or indoctrinated or delusional just the same. We just have to take a global poll and see what's going on globally. If you were born in a Muslim country, you'd be a Muslim right now. If you were born in Mexico, it's highly likely you would be a Roman Catholic. If you're born in Japan, you'd highly likely be a Shintoist. Born in Mongolia, Buddhist. Born in India, a Hindu. I think I got all those right. There's Shia Muslims and there's Sunni Muslims. It depends on which family you were born into or what state and so on. And whether you're a Catholic in America or a Protestant depends on whether you're born in, say, the South or not. I'll say more about that. That's undeniable. So, you can't objectively test your faith as an insider. And I'll show why. Now, what does it ask? No double standards, I think I mentioned that. One for other faiths and one for yours, and to be impartial. It asks for no faith. And that's the troubling one. People say, well, how can you have no faith? Well, that's not how you treat Islam when you're examining it. You treat it as an outsider. And as an outsider, you're examining to see whether it's true or not. That does away with the omniscience escape clause, you see. That does away with the faith trump card. You can't have faith in that which you're examining, otherwise you've got your thumbs on the weight scales, you see. You have to, and that's the hard part, because, I might go to hell, if I doubt. But Jason Long, in his chapter in Delusion, he says, well, be honest with God then, and just say, God, I want to test my faith to see whether it's true or not. And in order to do that, I've got to examine it, from an outsider's perspective. And, I hope you love me anyway, because, I really want to know the truth. And I hope that I find you, but that's what you can do to consider your initial conversion. Now, I shared mine in my book because it's important, it's relevant to how I came to believe. Did you, were you given a copy? Here's one. Say at 10 years old, were you given a copy of the Bible and this, and said, now read both and come back to me with an honest answer?